Time all night tonight, all night tomorrow night. Let me go. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow the man. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow.
Well, good night to everyone. Happy New Year to you. I did not see you last year, so I couldn't wish you a Merry Christmas. But I'm happy that we're here this year, 2021. And I would want to wish every single one of you, my viewers, a happy and productive new year. And to remind you that come this year, we are going places. To remind you also that in 2021, we are moving as one. We are climbing the truck as one. We're going up the mountain as one. And we are going to regain our country as one. With those words, let me say again, good evening to you. How was your day like today? How were your days? Christmas Day, Christmas Eve Day, the day after that one, All Year's Day, and then right into New Year's. Have you made resolutions? You know, I've stopped making resolutions because I recognize that, you know, resolutions in itself has a whole lot of seriousness behind it. And I've figured that quite a lot of us make resolutions because we come through the line and we hear everybody talking about making resolutions and New Year's resolutions. And so we make them. And after the first week in the new year, or maybe after the first month, those are through the window. And so I don't spend a whole lot of time to go around the place, you know, making resolutions. But what I do is every day I plan to be a little more, to do something a little more meaningful, to be a little more impactful on lives, and to make every day a better one. So in essence, I have not written those down, but that's my resolutions, my New Year's resolutions. But like everything else, I'm here again with you, advancing the cause. And we can only advance the cause because we're not having things going the way they ought to go. And yes, I'm hearing you saying to me, well, this is what life is all about. We don't always get things the way we want them. But let me say to you, there are certain basic principles that governs life. And some of those are fairness, equality, rights, and the rule of law. And so because some of that doesn't go the way we want them to go, well, not we want them to go, because they're not being observed and practiced the way they ought to be practiced, we have to advance the cause. Last week, we had a whole lot happening because we had the All Years and we had New Year's, we had Boxing Day. And you know what, my people, let me say to you, if at no time you were serious about your health, I beg of you to be serious this time around. Let me further caution you to observe all the safety precautions that have been laid out by the advisory committee, by the task force. Because COVID is no joke. And you know, it's amazing the way I saw persons operating during the Christmas season leading right up to New Year's. You know, people just walk around the place, no mask, nobody taking time off to wash their hands, nobody sanitizing, and people just, you know, like my folks would say, they're just there. And at one point, I was trying to figure out whether COVID had escaped Guyana, because, in Guyana, we got, quote unquote, we got Talibans and hooligans and so on. Maybe COVID got scared and COVID ran away. But I want to say to you, COVID is here with us. It's going to be with us for a long time. I don't know when COVID will leave us. But for now, let's ensure that we are safe. Let's practice the safety measures. People, put on your mask. Stop congregating in large crowds. Like I said, Christmas Eve night, I saw persons down the road, and we had at Orange Walk, a big line there, and people just ganging up there as if it were normal. My people, again, COVID is real. And if we want to slow the pace of the spreading of COVID, I have to be responsible. You have to be responsible. All of us have got to be responsible. And we need to remind others when we recognize that they're not doing the right things with regards to observing the safety measures. We need to tap them on the shoulders and remind them that, hey, my life is worth it. Your life is worth it. The lives of other persons are worthwhile. And so we need to be safe. We need to practice our safety measures. Having said all of that, I want to share with us this evening. We have a few things to discuss this evening. As a matter of fact, we have two guests who are going to be joining us a little later, so that we can talk about some issues. But y'all tell me something. Is what going on really? I wonder sometimes what is really happening with us. We've been talking a whole lot about democracy, the rule of law, equal rights, and so many things we've been talking about. But sometimes when the die is cast, you recognize that the word democracy and equal rights and to observe the rule of law, it's only in place for one set of people. And for another set of people, it's free for all. And so today we had big showdown. We had really big showdown today in Big Brother Uncle Sam. And I'm looking and I'm searching and I'm scrolling Facebook, trying to see if I'm going to see somewhere there this very goodly lady, Sarah Lynch, talking about observing the right for democracy and the rule of justice and the choice of the people and the rights of the people, and I'm not seeing it there, and I'm wondering, hey, what is it? As a matter of fact, I was saying to myself, wow. And let me take you a few months back into 2020. On March 5th, at the Ashmans building, we had a showdown there with the PPP. We had a showdown there with the PPP supporters. And today we had a showdown at Capitol Hill. And so, I'm wondering whether Ashman's building whether that was the training ground, whether that was the practice session for what transpired today. But yet, with what transpired today, I've not seen any of the Jerry Gavias or any of our guardians of democracy shouting and saying to Mike Pompeo that you people need to step aside, that Trump needs to concede. And I'm wondering, and I'm sure you are wondering just the same way I'm wondering. But you know what? We are going to have to call for sanctions. We are going to have to call for sanctions for America, sanctions for Trump and his family, sanctions for Uncle Mike, sanctions for Auntie Sarah, because it's time they concede. They had long enough time. It's time for them to step aside and allow for the new administration to take over. It's time for them to put in place the process that would lead to smooth transition. You notice I'm reusing the words that they were using at our president, His Excellency David Granger. I'm reusing their own words. You know, I always remember my grandmother saying something. She said, and she used to be repeating this a lot. I couldn't understand then, but I'm having a fairly good understanding of it now. She used to tell us, you don't have to take revenge. You don't have to take revenge. The rotten fruits will fall off the tree by themselves. So revenge is not for you. Something to that effect she used to tell us. But I couldn't understand what she was saying at that time. But like I'm saying, I have a fairly good understanding of what the thing means right now. These people, you know, some people ain't got no shame. These people ain't got no shame whatsoever, none. Because these were the same people who were shouting at us all along. These were the people who were telling us what we must do and what we shouldn't do. But here is it. These are the very same people who now have been placed not in the similar seat like us, but these are the people who have lost an elections. The people voted for who they wanted. The people voted for Joe Biden's administration, for that new administration, for the Democrats to take over. And I don't understand why the Republicans don't understand this. And you know, this is saying to us that some people feel that they're better than some. Some people feel that they're better than others. But I want to say to all of us, don't take revenge. The rotten fruits will fall by themselves. That's the thing my grandmother used to say. Don't take revenge. The rotten fruits will fall off by themselves. And you notice, we are seeing those rotten fruits. We're seeing them every day. And this is a sound that the trumpet is making, that Guyana will soon come alive. Guyana will soon come alive, because you know what? We are awaiting our day. The 18th of January is not long from now. The 20th of January is not long from now. And we are going to see the rewards of our hard work. And the rotten fruits, they'll fall off and go rolling by. I want to say to us, my brothers and sisters, it's not a time of rejoicing. But I want to say to us that nothing that is evil would go unpaid. Nothing that is evil would go unpaid. So when people feel that they can commit evil acts against each other, that will not go unpaid. It will not go unpaid. But let me go down and talk a little later. We'll talk a little later on that. But let's talk about some other things now. You know, we touched on COVID. And I want to say to us, just to set your minds for us here in Guyana, let me set your minds on the clock so that when it happens, you're not going to be surprised. Let me say to you from now that come the middle of January, going on to the end of January, our COVID numbers are going to skyrocket because of all the activities that we would have allowed during the Christmas period. We are going to see the effects of those numbers, of those activities, sorry. And it's not only going to have an effect on the people who were out there, it's going to affect all of us. So from now on, be on your guard. Be on your guard. You know, it's so amazing. And again, I'm going to repeat what old people usually say. When you're not in the seat, don't try to be the driver. Don't try to be the driver when you're not in the seat. Because you don't understand what the driver, when he or she is in that seat, how they feel and how they have to navigate. So don't pretend to be a driver or don't want to drive if you're not in the driver's seat. At this time, I'm going to bring on board our guests for this afternoon, or for tonight, let me say that. And so here we go. Madam Nima Flue
Good night.
and
Good
Madam
night,
Natasha
everyone.
Singh Lewis. Good night to you. I know that my audience, they're excited to have you people on board. And so good night to you. And I'm
Good
hoping that our
night.
conversation here will cause even some more stir on this program and around our country and within the diaspora. So Nima, tell us something. How was your day today?
Well, I had a blessed day. Thank God for spirit life. I must say a pleasant new year to all the viewers here. I trust that as we are in this new year, that our blessing will be greater than the last year. So it's a privilege to be
I,
here,
I,
sharing with you
I
tonight.
second that. I second that one. Tash, as I would call you. And this is MP Natasha Singh Lewis and MP Nima Flue. Tash, tell me, how was your day?
Good evening, Miss McDonald, MP McDonald. Good evening, MP Flue-Bess. It's always good to be with my comrades. It's always refreshing to have conversations. I want to take that line tonight. We're having an open and free conversation. Thank you
Yes.
for having me on your show, MP McDonald. Today was fantastic. I was in the company of two other MPs today. We had
Oh,
some good
wow.
answering. Wonderful.
So, so Tasha,
Nice,
you were saying
nice.
you were surrounded by all of the MPs. And you know, let me say to you, my viewers,
Wonderful.
Tasha, as I would call her, she's a very popular MP. Eh? She's loved by many, 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 many. Tasha has a way of just meeting someone and connecting with them. And you're going to hear a little more from her as we go along. But Tasha and Nima, I was saying to my audience not too long that in 2021, we move in as one
Yes, we are.
because we have an objective to achieve. And
Of
so we're
course.
awaiting January 18th
18th.
and January 20th. But
Mm-hmm.
before we go to those two dates, Natasha and Nemo, you know, we had big showdown today in Uncle Sam, Big Brother, right?
Yes.
I
We
had
Yes.
to
had
cut
big
off all the
showdown.
television
And
in my house to have this
I was
show.
saying,
Nobody
I was
watching
saying
local
to my
news tonight.
viewers, I was saying to my viewers just before you come on, I was saying to my viewers that I'm wondering whether the commotion we had on March 5th at Ashman's building, whether that
Is
was
a
the
replica
practicing stage for what
for
happened
what we
today.
see now.
Let me hear your views. Any one of you could start.
That's
Coretta,
my exact thought.
where is Auntie Sarah? I have been looking at Capitol Hill all afternoon. I have not seen her there, but she was at Ashman's building, minding the Guyanese people business.
And
But
doing
where
what
is
she
she
feel.
tonight? She's an American, and they're having chaos at the Capitol Hill, and she's not there. At least I didn't see her.
The crowd was too
Nima,
big. I thought of what my grandparents would have said. Do something like so. That's what I'm seeing there. They would have done injustice to our country, and now we're sitting and witnessing all that is taking place at the Capitol Hill. So the old people proverb, do so, not like so. So we're seeing it now.
Hypocrisy at its
well,
best.
I was saying not too long that while I was scrolling Facebook today, I was scrolling. I was looking for our guardians of democracy. I was looking for anti-Sarah. I was checking to see if I might see Madam, what's your name from Canada, man? She name's a fancy. I don't even remember the name. Strategy. I was watching for her. I was watching for Quinn, but I'm not seeing anything there. And I'm saying these were the same persons who were saying to us, it's time for His Excellency Mr. Granger to step aside and allow for smooth transition. What happening now?
MP Coretta, you're wearing the wrong lens.
Well, maybe.
You're wearing the wrong lens. The crowd is too big.
Maybe.
Your lens cannot see through the crowd.
I wonder if my boy Jerry Govaya went there too. I wonder if he's there.
They are absolutely quiet, Miss McDonald. You're absolutely quiet.
Extremely quiet. And I'm wondering, I was saying to my audience earlier, maybe we have rule of law, smooth transition, democracy, the choice of the people, and all of these words, they just suit one grouping of people. But for another grouping, it's different.
It's not so.
But I always, well, not always, but most of the times, I refer to what old people say. And I was saying that my grandmother used to have a saying where she was saying, don't take revenge, or revenge is not for you. Revenge, the rotten fruits will fall by themselves. Do not take revenge. The rotten fruits will fall by themselves. And that's exactly what we are seeing here. But so much for Uncle Sam and Uncle Trump and the guardians of democracy. They will get out of there whether they like it or not.
They have
and
to.
Guyana will breathe a new fresh air again. Not long from now.
Yeah.
But Nima, apart from being MP, you're an educator, you're a teacher. And the same for Natasha. Both of you have been in the education field, in the education sector. MP Flue, you are still there. Let's talk a little about COVID and its effect on the education system and maybe the country as a whole. Let's talk a little about that.
All right. I would like to remind our public, there were some guidelines given to give us an understanding of how COVID is transmitted. And they recommend that people practice washing their hands. If you go to cough or sneeze, you use the bent elbow, avoid touching your eyes, your nose, your mouth, limit social gatherings and spend less time in the crowd, and avoid close contact with people who are sick. And then they talk about cleaning and disinfecting frequently touch objects. And, when I look at what was given, and they talk about how COVID can be spread, be it on tops, the doorknobs, the gadgets, pens, and all these different things, it caused me to wonder what was the objective of the guidelines given for the current COVID guidelines we're having in Guyana. What is it that they aim to do? Do we aim to stop the spreading, or do we just aim to follow some guidelines? That's a question that comes to mind when I look at what is happening in our country. Because school reading... Yes, MP.
I just want to stop you a little. I'm hearing you're asking a couple of questions. But I want to ask you a question. I want to answer you with a question. Or is it we're trying to get more COVID numbers so we could get some more monies?
That's another question that needs to be answered. That's
Let that
another
teacher
question
go
I
to
want
the
to be
front of the
answered.
class, Miss Bess. Let that teacher go to the front of the class.
It is, when we look at what's happening, we're pushing to open school. We look at the hours these children will spend in the classroom. How often is sanitization taking place? I'm a person that likes to walk a lot, and I like to observe. I recall the first time when COVID started and you went to some of the hospital, the private hospital, you felt that, hey, Guyana in a pandemic, things happening because you see people um, well protected, sanitizing often and all of that. Go now to those very private hospitals and see how often sanitization is being done. It begs you to wonder as though, are we really having a pandemic in this country? Even to the school system, the children going to school. How often is there sanitization taking place to the furniture, the doorknobs, and all of that, even as the children return to the classroom? What I've been seeing is the children
Nima,
go today and go back tomorrow in the same environment.
Nima,
Yes.
I'm going to have to invite the goodly lady, Priya Manik Chand, my good friend. I'm going to have to bring her here to answer some of those questions for you because I can't
Yes, they
answer
need
those
to be
questions for
answered.
you.
They
I
need to
can't
be
answer those
answered.
questions for you. I can't answer them. I'm going to have to get her to answer those questions because, Nima, this is what I've seen just yesterday, and I think it might have been the day before, where we have gotten reports coming into us from Northwest Secondary School,
Yeah.
where teachers and the students
Are positive.
are positive. But you know what? School is happening as
As
normal,
usual.
business as usual. Nobody stopped to say, okay, let's send the children home for the rest of the day and the
Home.
teachers home and have the building sanitized. No, it's
Nobody.
business as usual.
As usual.
Natasha, MP Lewis, let's hear from you. How you feel about this whole thing with teachers and students being tested in schools?
And being
Mind
left
you,
there.
we were told that with this new term, we are going to be stringent measures are going to be put in place. And I would have expected that those measures would mean, especially students who are dorm students, that they would have been coming into the dorms tested before from where they're living, coming with their
And
little
then,
slip to say, I'm cleared, and not
I
to be
tell you.
tested when you arrive at this school. Let me hear your thoughts. Let's hear your thoughts on this one.
MP McDonald, I have a different feeling. I have a different understanding of what this is all about because I have three children at different stages of development. And I know how they at first in March there was this high level of fear and nobody went
Fair.
and left the house. I'm saying that to
Mhm.
tell you that our students they have their own concerns, right? They have their own feeling and their own understanding
Yeah.
of COVID and what is happening around them.
Yes.
We have to ask the question, what is the Ministry of Education doing? What is the Ministry of Health doing in terms of giving support to our young people? All right? You would imagine that the ones that are in primary and nursery, that their parents will help them. But we oftentimes leave the ones in secondary and post-secondary
Secondary
to
alone.
fend for
True.
themselves. And we know that stage of development for them, where they are. They're transitioning, they're teenagers, they're young adults, and so many things are happening in their brain at that point of
Brain.
time. What are we doing to educate them while they're at home, let alone staying, observing the guidelines? I
Guidelines
honestly
given.
feel after March, after August the 2nd, nobody is paying attention to any guideline because the current administration have something in writing, but their action says something totally different. They
So
want
on point.
to take the country back to normal operation as if it's just another day in the life of a Guyanese. And so the COVID pandemic is not that much important to anybody. You understand? So
That's
I
true.
understand that you have some concerns about the students being in school. I can say to you, Coretta, from the response, I have my children in private schools, and they too are suffering. The Ministry of Education has, I noticed a notice somewhere that they're going to meet with teachers of private and public schools on Thursday. I really want to know the purpose of that consultation, especially in view of a new strand of COVID that has already been detected. And because
Yeah.
our borders are
You
open,
could barely leave
it
the
will
forest
not
dry.
take very long for it to get to Guyana.
Yeah.
And we are
But
talking about getting students back in school. We have not done anything for them, for students and teachers. Let's not forget the teachers in all of this, you know.
And
They
teachers
are a
have their
stakeholder
families
in the
too.
process. The parents are a stakeholder in the process. The students are a stakeholder in the process. What education is out there guiding them along the way? What help are we
no,
giving them?
but Natasha, while we're talking about educating the public, the general public out there, and
Yes.
keep their awareness going, what systems do we have in place in terms of counseling for those students and other adults who were infected and those who are affected because a family member or two were infected or are
Infected.
infected? What do we have in place for them? Nothing, absolutely nothing. And
Absolutely nothing.
this is why many times I have to relate to what the old people would say. Don't try to drive if you're not in the driver's seat.
True.
I remember the halfway man, Frank Anthony. He had a whole lot to say when he was not the
Yeah, they
Minister of
didn't even ready.
Education,
Oh,
the
he
Minister of
had an
Health.
entire task
He had
force by
plenty
himself.
things to say.
He
But you
had
know
an
what is
entire
happening
task
now?
force.
He had a whole lot of plans. He
Yeah.
knew everything as the doctor, as the medical doctor.
Only then,
But you
but
know
not
what
now.
but you know what he's doing now? All he is doing now is copy and pasting from the Honorable Viola Lawrence's plan that she would have had. And he's getting confused because he's just pulling here and pulling there, and he doesn't understand what she was doing there. And so the
And
whole
that's the
thing
problem.
is thrown off balance. And Frank himself doesn't have a clue as to how
What
to attack this virus.
But
Because if
Coretta,
he
that
did,
Coretta,
if
there's
just
Frank has a
just hear me out
system.
on this. Just hear me out on this. If he did, then we would not have had our frontline workers having to go through the kind of treatment they're going through without having
yeah.
the relevant materials that are needed for them to perform their duties. Let me hear you, Natasha.
That's so true.
Coretta, this thing is not Frank thing. Frank has advisors. You forget him, Barry.
Well,
You
they're
forget him,
geriatrics, you know, and
Brando.
that's why I
You
said the
forget him,
halfway Frank, because he's
Tammy.
halfway there too.
A whole geriatric
It's
group he
two,
got at public health
it's
there.
two geriatrics he got there, and he's on his way. He's half.
Everybody just put in the piece together as they remember it. So that's why we
Yes,
have a piecemeal plan. I'm
indeed.
It's
even
sad.
I'm even thinking about this curfew. When you look at the curfew between 10:30 to 4 a.m. Now, how many persons actually be out of the house that hour, generally speaking?
Them people are
Most
sleeping.
people, my apologies. I mean,
But you know,
so the curfew cannot make an impact because look at the timings the curfew
True.
said. Most people is off of the street and people work. You check workplaces, especially in the private sector. They will work those people to the last second they could get out of them and then check to see how many of those workplaces are actually sanitizing after days work when the workplace is closed.
well, you know, you lucky that you gone to the workplace. But I'm looking at the schools.
Same
We
thing with the
have
school.
those grade 10, 11, and 12 at schools. And I can put my neck on a block that at those schools, We don't sanitize every half an hour. I can tell you that.
I know we don't.
I can tell you.
But MP McDonald, do we sanitize every afternoon when they leave?
No,
I'm not sure about that. No.
We do our regular sweeping. Sweeping, the regular sweep you do. And that is why I'm saying that these people are not serious when it comes to the safety of our people and ensuring that that lives are not lost. They're not serious about it. Because if they were serious about it, they would impose some of the measures that we see Maya Mortley or Mia Mortley is imposing in Barbados.
In Barbados, yes.
Right? We would have seen them applying some of the measures that the Honorable Rowley has imposed on Trinidad. I don't know if we're not learning.
But Ms. McDonald, don't forget, from March to August, the David Granger administration had those restrictions in place. Our borders were closed. We tried very hard to protect the hinterland borders. We closed schools. We had a different curfew that made sense.
Of course.
But don't forget, if the borders were not opened, then we would not have had our 11.5 tons. We got a gold medal for that, the 11.5 tons. If the borders were not opened, we would not have had that small plane crashing in the interior. If our borders were not opened, we could not have had all of these flights going in and out, because that's where the thing passes in. And it's only a small group. There's a small group who in control of that. And so that is why we had to open the borders. So the lives of the citizens of Guyana, it's not important. It's what we could collect, the drawbacks we get from the 11.5 tons. But as God would have it, it was intercepted. Yeah. It was intercepted. Yes. So they didn't get no profits coming from it. And I mean, while we can make some fun or joke out of this thing, it is serious business. Because COVID is no joke. COVID is no joke.
One life is too much.
But outside of that, Natasha and Nima, before March 2nd, our death toll with regards to COVID was 21. Was 21.
Yes.
And within the last couple of months, from August 2nd to present, our death toll now is almost 168, 170, somewhere there.
In 5 months.
In 5 months.
What happened when the second strand get here? And we are not prepared. We have not talked anything about vaccination as yet for COVID-19. And the second strand is upon us.
Don't talk about the second strand when it gets here. I want to feel that it's already here, because with so many persons traveling from England, we have persons here who came in from England. We have persons who came from Canada. And some of these persons were mixing. So it's almost safe to say we have it here. Now God help us. Only He can help us at this time. Now the same specialty hospital that the coalition government in their wisdom sought to set up there, that we were condemned for. These people ain't got no shame. It's the very same hospital they use it now, and they're making mileage out of them. They're getting mileage out of it.
They're getting money out of it too.
Again, too.
I hope they pay for it now. They pay the outstanding balance.
Coming out of the wisdom of His Excellency David Granger, when he introduced those school buses and boats and bicycles. He didn't know that COVID was coming, but because he was inspired, he did that so that our children can travel safely. Now we have COVID upon us, and those buses were sabotaged.
Oh.
So our children now are using regular transportation to go to and from schools.
School when they could have been
More
using the buses.
exposure.
That's
More
what I'm saying.
exposure.
Yep.
The same buses, those transportation could have been traversed, taking the children to and from school at this time to protect them. And then when you travel in the minibus, there's no practice really being taken by the public transportation. I was in a
None
minibus the other
whatsoever.
day, and my heart was just going very fast to get to my destination because I recognized in the minibus it was about 3 persons out of how many persons sitting in the bus that was actually wearing a face mask. And there's
Well,
no
look at that.
practice of social distancing. Everybody
So,
wanted to
so
fit the
we,
tree in the seat.
so we're saying that there's no collaboration between
Oh,
the government, whether it's education, health, the
health.
Ministry of Public Security, no collaboration whatsoever. Because if we were collaborating, then we would have and the unions to some extent, we would have had the
A
minibus
better response.
association working along with the police, and education working along with them, and health working along with them, so people would understand what they have to do. No more than 3 persons or 2 persons
Two
or
persons
5 persons or
traveling in
7
the
persons
bus.
in a seat. It was amazing when I learned that the minibus operators were given approval to conduct business as usual, so they can
Wow.
fill their bus to capacity now. I mean,
Wow.
when these things pop up, you wonder whether persons are in their right senses or not.
If they're actually thinking, they're not. They're
As,
not.
as Shara Duncan would say, madness, total madness.
Total madness.
Well, I am saying the same thing. I would have borrowed those words from him, and I'm saying madness, madness. Because here it is. Look, just today, we had cause, and I'm saying we here because I'm putting on my union cap now. We had cause to make some very sound, clear, and definitive statements, because we have schools, the Minister of Health is on national television and saying that several of our dorm schools, the students are infected with COVID, teachers are infected with COVID, other staff members are infected with COVID. But yet, we expect the schools to run normal. All you do is send home this child or send home that child. A positive results, but school operates as normal, no form of sanitization. But here, this one cadet officer was tested positive at the Department of Education 68 Brickdam, and for the last 3 days, all the officers were sent home. The place is on shutdown, and I'm wondering whether is Animal Farm business we carrying on.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we have one thing
Very
for one
sad.
set of animals and another thing for the other set of animals,
Better animals. That's what it appears.
which is saying clearly to us that the lives of certain people
Are more important.
has no value. They have no value. And these are the same educators who are telling us we have to reopen schools because the children's education is important. And the children's education is important. I remember one officer said to me at a meeting, when I was objecting to a couple of things, the officer said to me, I will die fighting for the education, for the education of the children. So I want to say to that officer that you're gonna dead for truth, you know. You're gonna dead. And you're gonna force our children to go out there. You will die and your death will go down in vain, because you're not going to force our children to go out there when you don't have proper systems in place, because you're gonna kill them. You're gonna kill them. We will protect our children, and we are going to protect our teachers and by extension, other members in the communities and this country at large. We are not going to allow them to be left in the wilderness where anything happens. It is even worse when we, in some of the institutions where the students are tested, rather than isolating those students while they await their test results, we have those children still in school. Are we making sense? So you understand why Sherrod is saying madness?
A
Total
total
madness.
madness, of course.
But MP McDonald, something doesn't make sense to me. I
A
understand
lot.
it's total madness, but sometimes you tend to go through the madness and see where is the method. But it's not making sense. We had this similar situation in couple months ago at President's College, and we knew what
Yes.
happened to the students at Cato. It's an
God.
experience for us to learn from. They are dorm students. We brought them out. We didn't test them. We bring them all together. Then we tested them and left them together, and all sorts of things happened to those students. Here again in January, we have deja vu with these secondary school dorm students. What is wrong with some people?
We
Don't we
don't
When
have
you
learn?
we don't
MP
have
Lewis,
patient
when you
people.
go to when you attend the university at IFLOT, this is what happens. Just that. Just that. When you attend the university at IFLOT, that is what happens. And you know, I'm saying this to say that we have to take these matters into our own hands and to ensure
Yes,
that
we
our
have to use
children are
wisdom.
safe,
Indeed.
and that's
Indeed.
our biological children. The children who they associate with, we have to instill that they continue to remain safe. And by extension, the communities from which we
Have to do
come,
that.
we have to ensure that our citizens there maintain and they observe the safety precautions and so that they can remain safe. If not,
Of course.
we are going to be looking for this population of 750,000 that we got. We're going to be looking for them pretty soon.
Of
Pretty soon
course.
we're going to be looking for them. But
Definitely.
on another note, MP Lewis,
Yes, my dear.
this whole thing with COVID, it's taking a toll on our people. And I know that this is a part of your field where I don't know if we're going to have one or two of that, but I've seen it happen in other countries where persons were their results came back positive and they would have committed suicide because one, they can't deal with the stigma, and
And
two,
the stress.
they can't deal with the kind of agony of not knowing whether you're going to survive or you're going to die. This, in my mind, if we don't put a stop on this now, this can result in many ills being
Total
happening
issue.
in our society.
Hmm.
This can lead to suicide. This can lead to domestic violence. I don't want to blame what has happened just recently, where a young 11-year-old and her mother lost
Was
their
mother.
lives. But you know, if we have the kind of systems in place to offer these kinds of counseling, then we are going to be able to address, to minimize, and to some extent curb the spread of domestic violence and suicide in our society. What's your
Yes.
thoughts on this? I know we had a whole, I think it was a whole department in one of the ministries dealing with social cohesion, where all of these issues would fall into place. Now we don't have that. What are your thoughts on this, and what are some of the recommendations that you would want to offer these people who got doctorates and so on?
You see, I come specifically to put some licks on the PPP tonight on this program. But now you're going to pull out the other side of me where I have to give you facts on dealing with social issues. Well, let me tell you something. There are two major issues that you have touched on there: suicide and domestic violence.
Domestic violence.
And we may not be hearing much about them, especially suicide at this point in time, but it's a real thing. And that is why the first comment I made on the school system and COVID is the want for public education.
Education and counseling.
If you have ever had a teenage child in your house, you will understand that panic and anxiety is a
Anxiety.
real thing
Real
for
thing.
teenagers. What is the Ministry of Education doing in relation to that? What are
Absolutely
we
nothing.
doing? We know for a fact that our system is decentralized. And we know that there is absolutely nothing in the regional budget because we were in Parliament for the whole of September and we talked about this. There is
Mm-hmm.
absolutely nothing in the regional budget to address the issue of psychosocial support for the Guyanese people in their respective regions. All right?
Mm-hmm. That's true.
The Ministry of Social Services, they pick and choose whom in the society gets the benefits. And I don't really want to bring this because it's a serious issue. But we're all politicians in this group, and we got to
Yes.
call a spade a spade.
Say
Only one set of people getting benefits right now, and all
Flash,
of us
flash,
as
flash,
Guyanese.
just hold for me. Hold for me. We got another champion in the ring. Just hold for me. We got another champion here on
this is a
advancing
hot.
the cause.
This is a
MP
head no
Ferguson, good
champion.
night to you. And welcome to advancing the cause.
Good night, Coretta. Good night, Nima. Good night,
Good night.
Natasha.
Good night.
Good night,
Happy New Year
MP.
to you people.
Good
Happy
night.
New
Good
Year to
night.
your viewers, your listeners, and everybody. Coretta, you know how long I trying to tap in to sneak in, but you wouldn't allow me. But thank God I am here. I am here. Yeah. So I'm happy to be a
Well,
part of
well, you
advancing the
know what?
cause.
It's always good to have champions
In the
sitting,
ring.
whether it's in the ring or
Or
on advancing the cause, or we have what
Across the waves. Don't
MP.
forget me. Across the
Yes,
waves.
give me yours.
Across the waves. There you go, Nima,
Across the
Nima.
waves, and we
live
have
from East Bank.
Madam Flu live from the East Bank.
Bank
And
of
and
Guyanese.
here we have, now you see what happened now? Look, I am surrounded by three persons from the East Bank now, and that's unfair, you know. That unfair. But MP Ferguson, we touched on democracy and Auntie Sarah and Uncle Mike Pompeo and all of them talking about His Excellency David Granger should step aside and allow for smooth transition. And we had the saga on March 5th at the Ashmans building. And today we saw a repeat of that at Capitol Hill. Tell me what you think about it. MP Tasha, we're coming back to you. But
I
MP
hope I can.
Ferguson,
Girl,
MP Ferguson,
what
just
I
let's
think
have your punch on this one.
what I think about it, it was so shameful.
Oh my God.
The
Of a
big
very
United
poor.
States that speaks about democracy, that speaks about, all sorts of things. But who is there now to say to them, um, um, sanction or declare the elections or whatsoever the case may be? Trump has to go.
They ain't got no if.
The Americans, they have already
MP
spoken. He has to go.
MP Ferguson, I would have said earlier that we are going to have to impose sanctions
Yeah,
on
yeah,
Uncle Mike,
yeah.
sanctions on Auntie Sarah, sanctions on Jerry
But,
Govaya and the
but,
Guardians of Democracy.
uh,
Plus,
well,
we
good.
got to impose sanctions on Trump and his family. We can take away the visas. They can't come to Guyana.
Well,
No way.
exactly that's what we have to do. But since what took place earlier there at Capitol Hill, you haven't heard anything, whether from
Not,
Mia Mutcliff,
not a
whether
word.
from Ralph Gonzalez, whether from
Irrelevant.
Farah Jack Diop, whether
Irrelevant.
from Afran Ali,
Irrelevant.
whether from the guy name you called just man, Jerry Govaya. You're not hearing
Irrelevant.
from these people. Where are they? Where are they?
In a barrel
All
of
these,
irrelevance.
all these people hiding. All of these people hiding, and you know why they're hiding? Because they know big things gonna be happening in Guyana. The entire
Indeed,
Guyana gonna
yeah.
be green just now. Green
Indeed.
just now.
All the way.
Green all the way.
All the way.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
as we were saying with MP Ferguson, MP Lewis, and then we'll come back to MP Ferguson. MP Lewis, let's have you continue on that trend because it's quite important and it's serious. It's serious.
Right. So let's talk about the emotions of people in Guyana. Let's talk about COVID and the impact on the teenage population in Guyana.
You know.
And let's not green them and red them. Let's call them Guyanese. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? And I want to say that purposely so that each one of them will get that Guyanese identity and get the help that they deserve
We
from
are
the
as Guyanese.
know what has been happening. I want us to talk because I'm developing the concept of what are we going to do in relation to domestic violence. And in November, our opposition MP group started a conversation on domestic violence,
Violence.
specifically gender-based violence. We talked a lot about gender-based violence. And MP McDonald, I can tell you, we were all in that group. When I reviewed that program, the impact is tremendous. The support we got, the comments, 233 comments suggested that we should continue
Continue.
conversation. This is a national need. And so I want to say to your viewers, to our viewers now, because they're going to always be our viewers,
Yes,
that
of course.
this is a conversation that we will start. We can't go to the point where we talk about statistics all the time, and we know around the world, the stat says it's 1 in every 3 women is abused. In Guyana, the report that was launched by the Honorable Amna Ali in, I think it was 2018, the report says 1 in every 2 women in Guyana
It's abuse.
suffers from abuse. That is significant. That report says 55% of the Guyanese women have reported abuse, have experienced abuse. We have to stop talking about report and statistics and survey, and we have to move to the point of what do we do?
What do we do? Yes.
We have to start that conversation on what do we do. And if we're going to talk about gender-based violence, we always have to bring the men in because there's a particular role that men will have to play in that conversation.
Well, you know, MP Lois, let me remind you and remind our viewers that that conversation that we are going to start and the action that we are going to start, it's not going to come from the breast of the illegal set, because don't forget, one of the geriatrics who's an advisor at Health, he told an activist, a female, that he would slap and strip her.
Yes.
And then we had the first vice president who had left his wife, put her out of the bedroom to sleep on the couch, and mosquitoes and so bit her. So we can't allow those people, because they know nothing about having respect for women.
Exactly.
So we have to start that. We have to show them the kind of men that we have in the coalition between the APNU and the AFC. As a matter of fact, when the coalition were in government, we saw being demonstrated by His Excellency David Granger the manner with which you ought to treat a woman. We saw that coming from former Prime Minister Moses Nagamotu. We saw our own dear leader of the AFC, Kemraj Ramjatan, showing us how to treat a woman. But those illegal sets, we can't look to them for anything. When we look at the manner with which people like Nigel Dharamlal, the manner with which he treats women, we got to do a whole we just call the thing we just got to do with the cars.
Overhaul.
Overhaul. We got to do a whole brand new overhauling of some of them. But don't worry, they ain't got long time more there. They got but a short time. MP Ferguson, how are you joining me on this one?
But I do agree with you. Long time. When is a long time done, short time come?
Right.
That's what it
long time come.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we know that the petition is in the courts. It will be heard on the 18th,
18th.
where the Chief Justice will have to give her ruling whether the petition goes forward. But we know we were there, Coretta, for 33 days. We sat in those rooms. We sat in those stations at the Ortachang Convention Center, and we saw
What was happening?
firsthand what came out from those boxes.
Yep.
We knew exactly what took place on the 2nd of March 2020. And
20.
that is why we consistently have been saying on all our programs, whether the AP and UFC Live, this program Advancing the Cause, Cheryl's program In the Ring, Mia's program, my program, we have been keeping it
Sure,
at the
Win.
forefront that Guyanese need to know the truth what transpired on March the 2nd, 2020.
20.
Because what we have in government at the moment is a bunch of illegal people who are actually squatting in the seats of government on illegal on by fraudulent votes. So we will continue to sound our voices, and we are positive that come
Yes.
the 18th of January, the petitions will move to the next step. And then don't forget,
So,
we
so MP Ferguson, you saying that we got squatters who removing squatters?
Yes, yes.
yes, yes,
Exactly.
we got squatters who are removing squatters, or who are trying to remove Guyanese who they have labeled as squatters. And the
Quarters.
real squatters are those who are occupying the seats of government.
But this is what I'm saying. We got squatters in high places trying to remove those poor people whom they calling squatters. And
Exactly.
mind you, it's only a certain group of people they calling squatters because we have those folks at Success on the East Coast and we have those folks at Canal
Yeah, canal
in
number
And
Region
they
one.
are
3
treated the same
Yes,
way.
and the conservancy dam. They already
on
give the
and the,
people lights. They give
but
the people
And
water.
they're given
Are you
royal
thinking? Is
treatment.
it? Yeah. Is it because the ones in canal number one, they hear texture is different from you and I, based on those persons who are out at success.
It's because
but the
Canal
thing
is
is,
close to Islot.
okay. I got it. Because I was just going to say the
That's a
folks
critical.
at Success, it's a mixed breed of people we got there. All kinds of
Exactly.
people we got there. So,
Exactly.
but the difference with those people there, I think, is because those people there have decided to stand up for their right. They don't
Yeah,
just
they're
take anything thrown down their throats. But
yes, but
I want to say to us, as leaders, we must lead by example.
mhm,
Of
And if
course.
one of those in the PPP, if one of those illegal ones in the PPP could start leading by example, man, they would even get me to follow them. But it's not in their DNA. That's not in
mhm,
their DNA. And so that's
mhm.
why you find we got an illegal minister of education who all she could do is abuse and cuss. That's all she could do.
Yes,
Brazilian
yes.
here.
When you got the children,
And
they're forced to reopen schools 2 days ago. And when you got children who have now become probably infected or reinfected, and you know what is the appalling what is of concern? I heard that they were only able to test those persons who have been infected. What about the other children who came from various areas? Because remember, they
All.
left the dorms probably early during the month
Yes.
of December, went home, spent Christmas, Christmas celebrations with their loved ones. We don't know where those persons went, during their time away from the dorms. Now that the children return to the dorms, you have tested just a few who have been
Instead
tested
of
negative. What about the rest? What about the rest?
madness,
Have they
madness,
conducted
madness, Annette.
conducted any any test on the other students.
Annette,
It's clearly
Annette, total
shown to
madness.
us.
Total madness.
It clearly, yes, I agree with you. It's total madness because the PPP has no plan. They don't know head from foot. You understand?
Foot.
From day one, they have treated this whole
Annette,
COVID operations badly.
Badly, indeed.
Annette, they know to copy and paste. They know to copy and paste, and that's what they're doing. Hence the reason for the
Yes,
confusion. But
E-
and
e-
I'm
Annette,
only, and
just
I'm only,
MP Ferguson, even the manifesto they copy and paste.
I'm
you know,
telling you,
right?
everything,
You know,
I
right?
change
everything,
all the words.
everything, everything. And the other thing we need to touch on, colleagues, is this: is the COVID relief, the distribution of the 25,000 grant,
Well,
and we have
I was
to.
coming to that.
All right, good.
But
Well,
since
I'll,
since
I'll
but
yield
no
to you.
no but since you're on it, let's flow.
Yes. Now,
Yes.
initially in the initial budget, right, the budget that they deemed an emergency budget, we approved the sum of 4.5 billion Guyana dollars, and
Billion
this is
dollars.
taxpayers' money, not the PPP money, not Barajak deal money. But we would have seen the way in which they have started to distribute this money across the nation. When they started in regions one, two, three, I think five, seven, six, 8, 9, and 10, leaving Georgetown all alone. They have now started region 4. Just last week on the 28th of
Of
December,
December.
they came back to the
Mm.
parliament seeking a supplementary amount of $2.5 billion. So now if you're to do
Yes.
the math, the 4.5 plus 2.5 will now give you a total sum of 7 billion Guyana dollars for the distribution of the COVID relief funds. But you know what, people? This distribution is not being done in a fair way. And we in the National Assembly, you heard Jaipal, you heard Ganesh Mahipal, you heard you Coretta, you Natasha, you Nia Flu, Sharon from region number 5. We have all been vocal how the
On the
PPP
manner in which
would
it
have
is being distributed.
treated this COVID relief. And we asked a series of questions during the debate. What is the methodology? What constitutes a household? Because I don't know if many of you remember, in the National Assembly, they stood up boldly and said, all households will
All
benefit.
household.
All
Yes, that's what they
households
said.
will benefit. So when they
Yep.
started in the various regions, except in region number 4, right? The goal now that they're in region number 4, the goalpost has started to shift because they know that they're coming to. This is the heart of the APNU AFC supporters in region number 4. So they've started to shift the goalpost. So now you're saying to me is that okay, if I live in upstairs, downstairs, and my landlord lives upstairs, is only the landlord would be entitled to pay
You're
that
getting
first?
it.
And this is what is bringing the issue. And Colin, the minister, the honorable minister, stood in the National Assembly when she was drilled last week, Monday. You know what she said? A team, a team is going into the areas to conduct a survey. But you and I know that that is not happening in many of the regions, in many of the communities. No advanced teaming going away. It doesn't make sense. You send out an advanced team, and then the same team got to go back probably 2 months after, a week or 2 weeks after. What sense does that make? So, because
But
of a plan, because of a methodology not being in place, this is the kind of madness we got. And correct as you rightfully
I
said, it's
wanted to
sheer madness.
I wanted to
Well,
add to
well, you
that.
know what?
Um,
Go ahead.
the
Go ahead,
same
MP
the
Flu.
same team that they claim they were setting to do a survey with in Friendship squatting area. The persons they were registered on this survey team. But yet still when the money were distributed and giving the people the money, they took police to take back the money from the people saying that they were not entitled for the money. But thank God we have
You
these
see?
smart people, they didn't return the money.
You
And the
see?
same thing is happening in Grove today. Today, I got a report from Grove. They write up a pink slip for an individual, but they didn't give the woman the pink slip. They took it away. But she signed on the pink slip. So what do you think will happen to that money? Then the
But then
same
go
money
get
that
your
was
big pocket
relieved,
off into somebody's pocket.
the same money that
Which
was
means
given.
we're going to have to sound this alarm out loud on every forum that we have the opportunity to be on, to say
Of
to
course.
Guyanese people, if you don't receive your $25,000, turn up at the office of the opposition leader on Kroll Street, and we will assemble you one of these days, and we're going to take you to the ministry so that you can receive your monies. We have to let them understand that we did not attend the university at IFLOT, so we got good sense. We are intelligent,
MP
and
McDonald,
since
Exactly.
those monies were voted on, our people will receive them.
MP
Exactly.
McDonald, I want to
Yes,
bring
my
another side of the story too. We all know, but we should let our viewers know too. In October, when they started the distribution, we recognize they started in Region 1, and MP Cox
yeah.
could have been updating us on how discriminatory this distribution is being done. I subsequently wrote the Minister of Human Services because we know the money was passed under her budget. You know what happened? She responded to me a long time after, but to let me know that the money is being distributed by the Ministry of Local Government.
Government. Darmlad.
So you see, and that for those who got a problem with not receiving the money, they should go to their village office and their village council and make a report, and somebody will take a notation and they will get their money. That is why when she stood in Parliament, she was struggling to defend the questions because she does not have a know-how of what is happening. Ashley and Darmlal are the two persons who are running the show with the money. And she just stands up here as a figurehead, and every time she's consulting with Ashley, she doesn't know what's happening with the money. She said that in a letter to me, that the money is being distributed by the government.
But so MP Singh, MP Singh Lewis, you were saying that even at the highest level, we have dishonesty being meted out, where monies are voted under one ministry and then you slip it over to another ministry because there is where the dirty work is going to be done. That's what you're saying to our viewers here tonight?
I have that in writing. I'm saying to you that I have that in writing from the Ministry of Human Services.
I want our viewers here to understand that these illegal squatters who claim to be so honest, they're not honest. They're not honest.
They have no clue what they're doing.
We can highlight villages where they would have gone to, or let me say it straight as this, villages that are predominantly supported by the PPP. Where you got a mother and father living upstairs and a son and a daughter-in-law living downstairs, and both of them collect the $25,000. You have 3 or 4 or 5 of them living in one home.
And family get upstairs, downstairs, and underneath.
Everybody. But also, I wanted to add to what Comrade Natasha was saying. I was at an NDC meeting on Monday, and somebody went there, a resident went there to find out about this COVID grant. And the people promptly said they have no knowledge of why people are being sent to the NDC to find out about this COVID grant when nothing was sent to them and no information was forthcoming to them. So how can they answer to the people? And let's not forget that the same COVID grant money is what is being used to pay these teams, the coordinator, 150,000, the area person, 100,000, and the team worker, 50,000. So when you look at just 3 workers and the team is collecting $300,000 from the very COVID grant that was given for the persons in this country. So a lot of people will not receive it.
Permission to publish that letter. I will seek permission to publish it because people should start seeing the inconsistencies for themselves.
So I know that when you're having fun, time runs away from you, and our time has really caught up with us. But let me tell you, folks, we're gonna have to do this another time.
Of
But
course.
I want us to zero down to let our audience there know and everybody else know that when we sit at these forums, it's not stories we are making up to tell you. No. It's what is real. Exactly what is happening is what we are saying to you. And we're highlighting these issues because these were the people who were saying, and they were pointing those fingers, those index fingers, they were pointing at the coalition, not realizing how many fingers were pointing back at them. And so we are seeing here a return of the old PPP with some new stripes that they tried to paint off, but it's the same old greedy people who have no respect for citizens, who only think about themselves, think about enriching themselves and their cronies and their families, and want to continue to allow the Guyanese people to continue to live poor lives. But I'm saying to all of our viewers out there, and we all are saying to our viewers out there, this is 2021, and we moving as one in 2021, and we will continue to advance the cause in 2021, because we know that the time is short for the PPP to sit where they're sitting right now, because the rightful owners will be returned to their position. Yes. And our country will once again return to a country with respect, a country where people love each other. You know, it's so amazing that within a couple of months, we have seen deep hatred, deep wounds of racism being caused by this fraudulent PPP government upon our people, this plague that they've let loose on our people. But you know what? Like my sister Annette would say, God doesn't sleep. And we are assured of that fact, that whoever this almighty being is that we serve, he doesn't sleep.
No, he does not.
He doesn't take sides, and he will justly reward the righteous with righteousness, and the wicked he will cause fire and brimstones to come down on them. With those words, I want to give each one of you 1 minute to make your closing remarks on advancing the cause as we bring the curtains down.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
I want to thank Comrade Coretta for allowing me to be on this program. To our viewers, let's stay strong. Anytime. Let's stay focused. Remember, practice the guidelines for COVID. Wash your hands, sanitize. Do not be in any large social gathering. And practice. We have to use wisdom to protect ourselves. And so I look forward to seeing you. And you feel free to join me on Saturday morning at 11 to 11:30 on live from the East Bank of Demoara. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really enjoy the comments I'm seeing. Good night to all the persons there, Mr. Poole and Mr. Lawson, everybody. It's very nice to have you on the program. Thank you.
MP Lois.
Hi, Coretta. It's awesome being here tonight. This is my first time being with you on your show, and it's awesome. Listen, I learned from Sherrod that when we're having this kind of conversation, our can't be enough. It's a nice time. You understand? But I do understand that we have a time and we have to do what we have to do. I want to say to our viewers, on a very serious note, we should be our brothers and sisters keepers. COVID doesn't have any recognition for race, ethnicity, or any diversity for that matter. COVID doesn't care who you are, and so you have to take responsibility for yourselves. We need all of you, every single person we need in this society. And so as MP Flue-Bess would say, observe the guidelines. Don't do the things that the PPP is asking you to do. Be sensible. Be responsible. Take care of your own health and the health of your family. And you can extend that to your neighbors and your community. Take care of yourself, because if you don't care for yourself, nobody else will. Thank you very much, MP McDonald, for having me.
No problem.
Okay, all right, good. MP McDonald, I want to say thank you very much for allowing me space on your platform to share with your viewers and your listeners. I also want to remind your listeners that the struggle continues. You have heard us mention throughout the night that we will return to government shortly so that we can bring back some semblance, some normalcy to the whole governance of our nation. You know what we had between May 2015 to August 2020. And we want to ensure that those very acts are returned so that we can have our country move forward. I want to encourage you viewers. It is programs like these that you must be able to tune in, where you're going to get the real facts, the truth, and nothing but the truth. Because what you will get in Kaichur News, in Guyana Times, in Chronicle, on NCN and all the other news outlets, it will be propaganda, because we have returned to those days where the truth will never be told. So it's on these programs we want to encourage you to join us, to hear from us. And in my parting words, I want to say to you guys, remain masked up. Ensure you sanitize, ensure you wash your hands. And I want to remind you, when the PPP came to government on the 2nd of August 2020 by illegitimate means, their death rate was 21. I mean, every life that goes by due to COVID is of concern to us as Guyanese. But we had the APNU AFC government, we had the COVID under control. You had 21 deaths. You had less than 480 cases, confirmed cases. Now today, we got close to 6,000. Close to 6,000. We've just 750,000 or less than 750,000 as a population. Right? What else do we have? We got 160 something deaths. I think the last figure I checked was 166. So we continue to touch the 200 mark. So the only way we can be protected from this dreadful disease is that we have to protect ourselves. We have to be responsible for our lives. So thank you once again. May God richly bless all of you who are listening to us, and do join me tomorrow evening between 6:30 to 7:30 for my program, Across the Waves.
Okay.
Well,
we'll be there.
I just want to thank you, ladies, for being here. It is indeed an honor, and I'm almost certain that the ground would have been shaking, because we got champions. We had champions here on Advancing the Cause. To our viewers, it's always nice to be with you. It's always nice being with you. The power of women, eh? Exactly. It's always nice being with you. We are going to be here again with you next Wednesday from 6:30 to 7:30. And if we have a guest next week, then we'll go the extra. But for now, stay safe, keep the fire burning, and remember, we're moving as one in 21. One love, my people. Good night to you.
Good night.
Good night.
Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow the man. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow, blow. Holla the blow, blow. We go have a grand time all night tonight. All night tonight. All night tonight. We go have a grand time. All night